Some of the most painful prisons don't have walls. They have names, memories, conversations you replay at night, situations you keep returning to, hoping this time it will feel different. And the truth is, you're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because you care. If this message feels uncomfortably familiar, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This channel is for people who are learning how to choose peace without losing their heart. And if you're listening quietly, you're still welcome here. Now listen carefully. What detachment actually means. Detachment does not mean you stop loving. It does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean you become cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. Detachment means you stop allowing your emotional state to be controlled by things you cannot fix, force, or save. It is the ability to stay grounded, even when something important to you remains unresolved. Most people confuse attachment with love, but attachment is often fear, wearing the mask of loyalty. You don't hold on because you're foolish. You hold on because you remember the good moments, the promises, the version of someone that once felt safe. You hold on because letting go feels like admitting loss, and loss feels like failure. But staying attached to what no longer nourishes you does not make you strong. It makes you tired, emotionally exhausted, mentally scattered, quietly resentful. Every time you stay in a situation that drains you, you pay a price. Not immediately, not loudly, but slowly. You lose focus, energy, self-trust, emotional clarity. You begin questioning yourself instead of the situation. You ask, am I too sensitive? Am I asking for too much? Why can't I just let this go? Those questions are not signs of reflection. They are symptoms of emotional overextension. There comes a moment, quiet, unremarkable, when you realize you are doing most of the emotional work. You are the one explaining, the one adjusting, the one waiting, the one forgiving without change. And in that moment, something shifts. Not anger, not hatred, awareness. You realize you are investing in something that no longer invests back in you. That realization is the beginning of detachment. Most people try to detach by changing their behavior first. They stop calling, stop texting, stop showing up. But detachment doesn't begin externally. It begins internally. It begins when you stop arguing with reality. When you accept, this is how this person shows up. This is how this situation functions. This is what I can expect if nothing changes. Acceptance is not surrender. It is clarity, and clarity is power. When you've spent years overgiving, detachment feels like betrayal. You feel selfish for pulling back, guilty for choosing distance, uncomfortable for prioritizing peace. But that discomfort is not a warning sign. It's withdrawal. You are withdrawing from emotional patterns that kept you bonded through struggle instead of mutual growth. And growth always feels unfamiliar before it feels right. This is where many people get stuck. They believe, if I detach, I don't care. If I step back, I'm abandoning them. If I choose myself, I'm being cruel. But caring does not mean sacrificing your mental health. Loving does not mean enduring constant distress. You can care deeply and still refuse to be consumed. Detachment is learning where your responsibility ends. The first real shift happens when you stop asking, how do I make this work? And start asking, what is this doing to me? That question changes your posture, your boundaries, your self-respect, and once that shift happens internally, your behavior will naturally follow without force. When you begin to detach, it can feel like grief. Not because something ended, but because something finally became clear. You are not mourning the person or situation as it is. You are mourning the version you hoped it would become. That's why detachment hurts even when it's right. You're letting go of expectations, imagined futures, and emotional investments that once gave you comfort, even if they were slowly draining you. And the mind resists that, because the mind prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Attachment says, I need this to feel okay. Connection says, I choose this, but I am whole without it. Most emotional suffering comes from confusing the two. Attachment creates fear. Fear of loss, fear of abandonment, fear of change. Connection creates stability. You remain grounded even if things shift. You don't collapse when others disappoint. You don't chase what pulls away. Detachment doesn't kill connection. It purifies it. If you've ever detached physically but stayed mentally attached, this is why. Your body left, but your mind stayed behind. You replay conversations. You imagine different outcomes. You rehearse what you should have said. That mental attachment keeps the emotional cord intact. Detachment requires mental discipline, not suppression, but redirection. Each time your mind drifts back to what you cannot change, you gently bring it back to what you can control. Your response, your energy, your next step. This is important. Detachment is not something you decide once and never revisit. It's a practice. Some days you feel strong, other days old emotions resurface. Memories soften your resolve. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Each time you choose not to engage in old patterns, each time you choose silence over explanation, each time you choose rest over rumination, you are strengthening your emotional independence. One unexpected consequence of detachment is resistance. When you stop overgiving, stop reacting, stop chasing, some people become uncomfortable. Not because you did something wrong, but because your detachment removes the role you used to play. You are no longer the emotional cushion, no longer the fixer, no longer the constant source of reassurance. And that shift can expose imbalance. Detachment doesn't create conflict, it reveals it. One of the most peaceful outcomes of detachment is realizing you don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't need to justify why you're quieter, why you're less available, why your priorities changed. People who respect you will feel the shift and adjust. People who benefited from your overextension will question it. Your silence is not avoidance, it is alignment. Detachment without boundaries becomes isolation. Boundaries are what make detachment healthy. They define what you engage with, what you respond to, what you tolerate. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They allow what nourishes you and block what drains you. And boundaries do not require anger to be effective. They require consistency. As detachment deepens, something subtle happens. Your nervous system relaxes. Your thoughts slow. Your emotional reactions soften. You are no longer on high alert. No longer waiting for disappointment, no longer bracing for impact. Peace doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly, in moments where you realize you're no longer thinking about what once consumed you. That's when you know detachment is working. Eventually, detachment reshapes how you see yourself. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must endure, someone who must fix, someone who must hold everything together. You begin to see yourself as someone who chooses peace, chooses distance when needed, chooses growth over familiarity. And once that identity forms, you no longer chase what pulls away. At some point, detachment stops being something you try to do and becomes something you are. You no longer wait for apologies that may never come. You no longer wait for clarity from people who avoid honesty. You no longer wait for situations to magically change. You give yourself permission to move forward without needing agreement, validation, or closure from outside. That's when detachment becomes freedom. Many people stay emotionally tied because they're waiting for closure, an explanation, an apology, a final conversation that makes everything make sense. But closure rarely comes from the people who caused the wound. Closure comes from understanding this truth. You don't need their acknowledgement to validate your experience. You don't need their remorse to justify your decision. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. Detachment happens the moment you stop outsourcing your healing. When detachment is complete, something surprising happens. You don't feel hatred. You don't feel bitterness. You don't even feel the need to prove anything. You feel neutral, and neutrality is powerful because neutrality means you're no longer emotionally hooked. You're no longer reactive. You're no longer invested in outcomes. You wish people well from a distance. You remember without pain. You move on without guilt. That's real detachment. Here's how you know you've truly detached. You no longer feel the urge to explain your side. You no longer replay conversations in your head. You no longer feel pulled to check, fix, or follow up. You've stopped negotiating with the past. Your energy is no longer leaking backward. It's flowing forward. And that's when life begins to open again. Letting go is not loss. It's making room for healthier connections, aligned opportunities, peaceful routines, a version of you that isn't constantly managing emotional weight. When you detach from what drains you, you create capacity for what nourishes you. Life doesn't punish detachment. It rewards it with clarity. Remember this, you were never meant to carry everything. You were never meant to save everyone. You were never meant to stay where you are shrinking. Detachment is not giving up, it's choosing yourself. And choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. If this message helped you breathe a little easier, like this video so it reaches someone who needs it too. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Not for motivation alone, but for clarity, growth, and emotional strength. And if you're ready to release what's been weighing on you, leave a comment and say, I choose peace. Stay grounded, stay aware, and remember, letting go is how you move forward.